fertility.
This is our last webinar of Fertility Week. If you don't know, New Zealand is a registered charity. We've been in existence for over 25 years. We have three main functions. We provide information mainly through our website, fertility.org.uk. We have support groups running around the country. They're regular coffee groups through to more structured contact. And we also provide advocacy and the voice of New Zealand affected by infertility. Now, I would like to invite Deanne Bravo. She is the Secretary of Fertility, and she will be presenting your resilience and fertility. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat box during the presentation. Over to you, Deanne.
Hello, I'm Deanne Brabant, as Nicola said. My own journey through infertility, I went through 3 IVF cycles and sadly don't have children of my own, but I give my time to Fertility New Zealand to assist and help educate and provide a lot of help in terms of advocacy to Fertility New Zealand. So tonight's webinar is about building your resilience in infertility. Infertility, it's a very difficult journey for people to go through. It does bring profound emotional stress. In terms of infertility, even if you do get into undertaking treatment, you are in a place of grief right from the outset. You've had months and months, up to a year of trying to get pregnant before you can actually access fertility services. And in that time, it is a very, very difficult time in terms of being able to deal with the consequences for yourself of actually not having conceived. Our responses to infertility are often complex and also so strong that they can be extremely overwhelming. Our society is very much about family and family planning, and we have a bit of a birth control kind of family planning culture. Most of our younger years are spent trying not to get pregnant, and then it's quite odd when we actually go to get pregnant and find that we can't. And it's certainly not within our plan or our sphere or our thoughts about what we would, how our life would be. The experience of infertility itself can actually be quite unbelievable, because when you're a child, when you're a girl, you're playing with dolls, you think you're going to be a mum, and suddenly this world's flipped upside down, and it can be a major life crisis. It's particularly difficult when you're a person who's planned your whole life out and you think you know when things are going to happen and when you'd like them to happen, and you've met the man of your dreams or the woman of your dreams, and suddenly you want to have a family with them and it's just not happening. It's a very difficult thing to face head on, and it's a difficult journey to explain to others about what you're actually dealing with yourself. Infertility and loss. Well, infertility itself is a significant loss in someone's life. To be told that they're infertile is quite a difficult place to be in. For women, it's the loss of not being able to be pregnant, not knowing what that's like, not experiencing it, and then also, of course, not being able to give birth or knowing what that's like. It's like everyone else is in a secret club that they know about all these things and you don't. It's the loss of breastfeeding, it's the loss of raising a family, which is very much part of society's norms. And for women, it's a significant loss in terms of self-image and their confidence, and a loss of your own self-esteem. The very thing that you feel your body's made to do, it just won't do, and you're not achieving a pregnancy, and you're watching your friends and other people go through pregnancy, your family members have children, and you yourself are not able to, and it's actually quite a deep-seated pain within you. For men, it's the loss of sharing with their partner in a pregnancy, going to scans, seeing their child develop, and being there as a support during childbirth. And again, for men, just like women, it's about not having a family to raise. And very much when you meet people, particularly once you've been married for a long time or you're in a relationship for a long time, the first question that arises is, do you have children and how old are they? And it's a very difficult place to be in, to actually try and explain that to other people, that you don't have children, without giving too much away about your own personal circumstances or situation. For men, it's also a loss in self-image and confidence and self-esteem. And for those suffering from male factor infertility, that can actually be quite extreme and extremely painful. The crux of it all in terms of loss is the fact of what society thinks about the role of being a parent, and that it gives you direction, and when the role's not fulfilled, quite often can feel like there's a big void in your life, an emptiness. Waiting for a pregnancy to happen dominates, and it's month after month of grief and loss. It's hope against hope. Even when you get into fertility treatment, that requires a lot of waiting. There's waiting lists and time to get into treatment in the first place. The cycles themselves are 6 weeks long in most cases, and it's a lot of time and effort put into actually trying to get pregnant. And even if you achieve a pregnancy, it's actually a lot of waiting and scans and concerns about whether or not you'll actually go on to have a child. It's a sense of your life being on hold, and I've heard many people say about the fact that they just don't want to take up a promotion, they don't want to plan holidays overseas, they don't want to look ahead, because they think that while they're going through fertility treatment or they're trying to conceive, that they can't really plan ahead and do these sort of things. It's a significant loss of control, and that feeling is very, very strong. And one of the things that I would say in my own journey, and also for those that I know that have been through this journey, it's really important to actually increase that sense of control. You feel very much in the hands of doctors and other people. You're waiting for a diagnosis to find out what's wrong with you. For some people that doesn't come. For people with unexplained infertility, they don't get the answers to the questions. They just know that they're not able to conceive. And in my experience, that's actually been quite, it's more difficult than having a diagnosis. It's actually a bit of a head game, actually. You try very hard to keep your hope up. And I guess people with unexplained infertility, like any particular month, they could actually conceive. Technically, but it's just not being achieved, and that in itself is quite difficult. It's important to recognize the difference between what you can control and what you can't. And you can't control the fact that you're suffering infertility, but you certainly can be proactive. You can seek information from infertility specialists. You can ask lots of questions. You can see an infertility counsellor who's well aware of the effects of infertility and grief, and understands the process that you must go through, the treatment cycles. They'll explain to you about the scoring for getting into funded infertility treatment, and they'll actually give you a large range of information. Fertility New Zealand also has a large range of information on our website, and also handouts which are actually found at the clinics, etc. as well. There are support groups that you can attend. I recommend them. I think the first time that I went along to a support group, I actually felt normal for the first time in a long time. And just being able to talk about with people that I knew were going through the same things, about how I was feeling and how difficult it was within your relationship dealing with infertility, etc., was a godsend. Libraries and websites are helpful. We do say, though, be very, very careful about what you read on the internet. I would opt more for sites like the clinics themselves. Our website, all the information on our website is actually gone through medical professionals, counsellors, nutritionists, etc., because we want to make sure that people have the right information. Join your local support group. It's great. The emotional support is excellent, and you're actually sharing in a common interest. You can feel very, very isolated as a person suffering from infertility. You can feel like the whole world is going 2 by 2 and then having babies, and they're everywhere around you, acutely aware of everybody else being pregnant and not you. And to be around other people who know what that feels like is actually really, really important. You can share information with each other, and you can become better informed and most of all less isolated. It's very difficult with families, I found in stories from friends, etc., who have suffered from infertility. I found it extremely difficult to have their families understand what it means to them and how hard it is for them in going through treatment. It's also a very personal decision about who you tell and how much you tell. And so that can also be a bit of a dilemma in terms of your family. The most important thing is self-care. You've got to build up your inner resources. This is not a journey for the faint-hearted at all. It is a really brave journey that you enter into. You need to look after yourselves, both of you. Both partners need to ensure that they have good nutrition, that they exercise, that you get enough sleep, that you have fun together, that you still go out and do things together, and you enjoy things like going overseas and having holidays and going away, and that you make this time while you're in limbo waiting to see whether or not you're going to have children, a fun time for you, and you nurture your relationship. Also, do things to be pampered, whatever makes you feel good. If it's walking on the beach, go do it. If it's going and having a massage, go do it. It's actually about looking after yourself and your mental well-being. It might be doing things like getting involved in a meditation group or doing some mindfulness. There's lots of mindfulness CDs, etc., around for people who are going through fertility treatment, and I recommend them because it's not a great mind space that you're in while you're actually going through it. It's quite a difficult time, and it's got its ups and downs, and it's stressful. So anything that you can do to alleviate the stress on yourself, then do it. You'll know what works for you, and just do what feels good. You've got to try and live your life as much as possible in the present, while still hoping for the future, and hoping and believing that you will achieve your dream. Write it down. I found this really good. Look, diarying, writing down, taking notes when you go to the clinic about what's said to you, because sometimes you're in a bit of a haze and you don't remember what was said, and you get home and you wonder what the doctor had said to you and what was going on, and you come away with an impression sometimes that may be not right. Journal how you're feeling, if that works for you, or get involved in an online group and share your experiences with other people as well. Just a way to release the tension and stress that might be in your life. So as a couple, it's really important that you'd schedule a regular time to review feelings and how you both feel about going through this journey of infertility together. It's really hard not to actually have everything focused in on your infertility and have that dominate your life and your conversations, have it dominate the way that you plan things for the future, etc. But talking with one another will also prevent you going into denial or actually not discussing it at all with each other. It is important that you still actually share your feelings and concerns and worries, and that you plan things together, and that you're in it on the journey together. find some people that are outside your relationship that you can actually share with, and that you can offload some of the emotional experience. Sometimes it's a bit much for both of you to actually be offloading on one another, and it's actually quite nice to have that release outside of you. Cry. Hold each other. Do those things that actually connect you together and show that you're actually in a common experience together. The whole journey is actually quite heart-wrenching, and it's very, very difficult at times to actually see a way through it. And by actually being open, honest and frank with one another and sharing how you feel, that will help you to actually move through the journey as best as you both can. Men and women's experiences of infertility are actually quite different, as you would expect. Women, we intuitively benefit from being allowed to cry fully, and often after that we feel quite a sense of calmness and peace, and letting go of all the tension, and then moving on to other things that we can sort of be productive and think about what we need to do next once we've released all the emotion. Women can feel quite frustrated in their attempts to talk and grieve because their partner's unwilling to listen and acknowledge their pain, or just can't actually relate to it, that it's quite difficult for them to empathise sometimes with that position that you're in. Women generally bear the physical load of infertility treatment. If we're talking about fertility treatment being like bacon and eggs, well, the woman's the pig, because they've actually given up a heck of a lot more to go through the experience. The cycle requires you injecting yourself, lots of scans, and much of the treatment is very invasive. By the time you get to the end of an IVF cycle, you can feel pretty wrung out by all that you've been through, and then your partner turns up on the day and provides their sample, and that's pretty much their lot in it. And it is actually a huge undertaking for a woman to go through. Women often feel the grief much earlier than men. I think in terms of my own personal grief, the loss of trying every month and not conceiving set me up for a place of grief even right before I started infertility treatment. I was acutely aware of my own infertility. Women were ready to be mothers yesterday. As soon as we want to have children, we want to have them, and we want to have them now. And a longing for a pregnancy can make every month that you're unsuccessful just a terrible signal of your loss and your inability to conceive. It's essential that both partners actually respect each other's feelings and recognise that you both deal with things in different ways. For women, it's really important that they're not being told that they're obsessed, and for men that they're not being uncaring just because they're responding in quite different ways to what they're going through. For men, it's a very difficult thing because they can't fix the problem, and they can't really do anything to alleviate their partner's distress. They can't make you get pregnant. They can't fix it at all. Often they find it more difficult to acknowledge infertility, men, because they connect it to their sexuality. They think that it means that they're less of a man, and they struggle with talking about it because of that. Men are the support role during fertility treatment, and their role is really important. But in assisting your partner, you can also assist by actually taking some responsibility for lifestyle changes to improve your chances. So while I was saying that women are extremely involved in the whole process, for men, what you can do prior to actually getting involved in in an IVF cycle or treatment itself is actually make sure your nutrition is good, your weight's good, you're not smoking. There are things that you can do that can show that you're actually supporting in a more physical and active manner. It's essential that both partners actually just come out of a place of respect, and that they look after each other in the whole process. Oops, sorry about that. I'm getting ahead of myself. So if you are suffering from infertility, what you will know is that there are some times of the year that are actually much more difficult to deal with. And special celebrations, etc., can be sources of quite a lot of pain, and also questions from relatives and people that you probably don't really particularly want to answer. Some of those things are easy to deal with if you actually think in advance about what your position is going to be, about whether or not you're going to actually mention to people that you are trying to conceive and you haven't been successful, or whether how you're going to respond as a couple. You don't have to go to all events, and you can choose which ones you'd like to attend. You may not choose to attend all occasions which are centred around children and babies. I know that things like baby showers, etc., were just something that at some points in my journey I just couldn't attend, and that was much to do with my own self-care. But I found ways of actually celebrating the friend or person that it was that had a baby shower without actually being centred and sitting in the middle of a baby shower and having to try and suck it up and feel like and answer the questions that would come, or listen to some of the things that people would talk about, particularly in relation to these childbirth experiences and that. Choose to spend time with friends who also don't have children. So I would recommend that, building up your networks of people, but also keeping close with those that you have long-term friendships too. Just work out ways that actually it works for you as a couple. On Mother's and Father's Day, you may like to actually give your partner a small memento or do something special together to acknowledge your journey so far and that you desire to be parents. If you've lost children, it's a time to maybe reflect on the children that you have lost and find a way together to actually support each other through that day. Christmas and summer holiday season is actually quite hard. The things that you can do are plan in advance. You're going to acknowledge that some days are actually harder than others. Christmas Day is always particularly hard. Spend time doing things that you enjoy as a couple and on your own, and find out what gives you bliss and joy, and do it. You might want to celebrate with your family a week or two in advance and just do something together as a couple on Christmas Day if that works for you. Of course, while you're actually going through fertility treatment, you're trying your best to actually make sure you keep your weight down, that you're eating properly and you're doing those things. So it's a time to think about how you're going to handle that over Christmas. And whether or not you'll take a break for the Christmas period and you might drink or eat what you like. It's just about choosing what's actually right for you at that time. Spend time as a couple, sharing how it feels for you at that time, and making it a special time for you. Of course, Christmas, New Year period is actually the end of the year. It's a nostalgic time for people. And if you've had a year of treatment and you've been going through it and it's been a rough year, it's probably a good time to actually acknowledge what you both have been through together. It's a time for recapping maybe and regrouping together and gathering up your resources to actually plough into the next year of whatever that might bring. Appreciate your friends and family members who've supported you through the year, and tell them. The people that have been really good, that do understand, that listen, that send you texts when you're going through cycles, that ask you how you're going, that really want to know how you are coping, how you are feeling, they're the people that you should uplift and uphold at this time. Stay in touch with your other infertile friends. They're going through it just as you are at that time. You know, there were times where I would text my other infertile friends and we would almost roll our eyes together and feel support for what we were going through, because it's sort of a time of year also where you get lots of insensitive comments and you don't know what to say, and at least if you're in touch with your friends, you can laugh about it. Laughter helps, it really does. So there are some things that you might want to do, and you will know whether or not you're a person that's able to deal with going into being involved and be around shopping centres and having lots of children around during the school holiday period, and whether that triggers you or makes you unhappy. Don't do things that make you unhappy. Don't just suck it up for the sake of it. If it actually triggers you and it's a difficult thing for you, then choose not to do it. Don't feel guilty about not participating in traditional celebrations. If it doesn't work for you and it's not safe for you, then you're better not to do it. Don't forget that you actually need each other, and you need, as a couple, to actually support each other through the difficult days. Don't pretend that nothing's wrong and carry on business as usual. That just means that you'll blow out somewhere else at another time. Actually going through this journey and being live and present to one another and to your own feelings and emotions is really, really important. Don't be caught off guard by unexpected or embarrassing questions about your plans to for having a baby. One of the ways that I kind of dealt with it, people would ask me, you know, do I have children? I'd say sadly no, and that seemed to work because actually people realised that maybe there was a story there and I didn't particularly want to tell it, but they weren't going to push any further. Don't feel that you have to actually tell all of your intimate details about your situation. I think it's a decision that you as a couple can make. Some people don't even tell their family that they're going through fertility treatment. If you are one of those people and that's what works for you as a couple, I'd still recommend making sure that you get involved in support groups so that you're just not on your own, particularly during cycles and also in the waiting periods. In between cycles or after losses, just so that you're covered and you have people that are there for you. You can't expect, unfortunately, for others to understand your pain. It's quite difficult. You can get caught up in a cycle. I've actually just been talking about it a lot and being sucked into this void of being infertile. It's quite a difficult place to be in. And some people actually don't want to hear too much about your journey, sadly. They're not capable of either coping with it or they just can't relate or empathise with it. You may be better to actually just refer to it briefly and ask that them to support you by respecting your choices of how you want to go through your journey. Don't deprive yourselves of the chance of having fun. In fact, actively plan having fun together. It's important. When you're going through treatment itself, and particularly before egg collection and that type of thing, plan a romantic dinner, do nice things together, make it a special time for you. You've been robbed of all the joy of it being about being an intimate connection with one another. It's all very clinical. So try and do things that actually support you and your relationship together. And that's the end of the presentation. So if there's some questions, then we totally welcome them.
I'll doesn't look
like there are any
comments
comments
at the moment. So we'll presentation to a close. Very much, Deanne. It was a really helpful presentation.
Welcome.
This evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.